this is ShinGoji Gaming here, and today we're going to talk about the final plunge of the Titanic and the methods and the science behind the breakup of the ship according to my theory. Before Titanic struck the iceberg, it had a 2.5 degree list to port. Then after that 2.5 degree list to port, after it struck the iceberg, turned to a 5 degree list to starboard, as the water from the North cold Atlantic Ocean started to enter the ship, flooding it. The ship started to sink by the head very fast. Titanic started to sink by the head even faster, and as the water reached the tip of the forecastle by 1:40 a.m., Titanic started to give a 9 degree list to port, as reported by survivors and people on board, as people had problem with launching the lifeboats, especially on the starboard side, as the lifeboats started to gash on the starboard side of the ship. By 2:15 a.m., wherein Titanic had 5 minutes left, Titanic was still listing to starboard by 7 degrees, and the Titanic had returned to an even keel. Finally, by the first 30 seconds of 2:15 a.m., the first funnel fell and collapsed, pushing the lifeboats collapsible A and B further by 50 meters, as survivors said. The grand staircase dome has collapsed. Titanic starting to a 23-degree angle, followed by the collapse of the second funnel caused by driven explosion. As Titanic started to rise, stress and compression starts to get even worse, starting to break the ship. This is only for the part of the first 3 minutes of the final plunge, and the rest of the sinking started at around 11:45. So we're gonna start again, and we're gonna show the sinking from 11:45 p.m. to 2:17 a.m., which is only includes the partial of the final plunge only. we are now going to discuss about the breakup of the ship, its factors, and what are the causes behind it. So here's Titanic at 2:17 a.m. at a 23-degree angle, rising higher as stress and compression starts to get even worse. In order for a ship like the Titanic to break, it has to have the amount of energy or force strong enough to break it. The Titanic before she broke had an angle of 19 to 24 degrees. As she rises higher, she bends slowly as the weight of the bow, which is 90,000 tons when she is filled up with water, and the stern 14,000 tons with the weight of 1,500 people on the aft end. These forces act on each other, forming a bending force on the Titanic. The bending force forces the Titanic to bend even further. We all know the ship has its limits. The bending force which acts on the ship causes it to break from bottom to top. But as she bends even further, stress then begins to form at the top, at the top, then the cracks radiate outward and bulges the hull, and the bending force shoves the engines to the top. As it reaches the top, the boat deck then finally fails, and both cracks meet at the middle and then finally breaks the ship in halves completely and into sections, which is the aft tower, the forward tower, the bow section, and the stern section, which separates the ship into 3 or 4 different sections, which is shown in the screen. In what you see, that you can see the Titanic is now splitting in half. The forward tower has now failed because its structure is very weak and cannot hang on to the stern anymore, followed by the collapse of the third and fourth funnels and the boilers falling off. Extra information about the final plunge of the Titanic, the final 2 minutes or 3 minutes. The breaking section also supports one survivor account, namely by Mrs. Chaffee, which she said seemed to writhe and break into 3 parts. The part where people said she seemed to break in half, which may mean they are not sure if it broke or not, may be supported with the list to port. Some of these people who claimed and said the word seemed, appeared, and as if were in a position where they can hardly see the Titanic break. The Titanic listing to port is possible, but not like how Jaugen describes it, with it not returning to an even keel or going back. One theory of mine of the stern's final plunge goes that it lists to port, goes vertical, and turns around, which is supported by another survivor, namely Richard Norris Williams, who claimed it sank facing England. Now that you have understood the matter of the sinking and the breakup, we will now watch the breakup of the ship in real time from 2:17 a.m. to 2:20 a.m., the final 3 minutes after the breakup and during the breakup. that's all for today. Thank you for watching for my video and the explanation of my sinking theory. This is ShinGoji Gaming signing out. Leave a like and subscribe. Thank you.